Welcome everybody. Good to see you guys. Thanks for coming. Really excited about today, and we had a great first service. Of course, I like you guys a lot better than the first service crowd, so this should be a lot of fun. I see Mr. Cadera back. Is that right? Are you back for good? Stand on up here. Come on up here real quick. And we love our guys that serve. Come on up. You lost a little bit of weight too, didn't you? What? You whistle at me? Hey, buddy, come here. I didn't see you come in. You like that haircut? Okay. How you doing? You've been gone for 6 months.
Almost 7.
The microphone.
Almost 7. Yes, I know what you mean.
Okay. Were you a radio host over there or something? Tell us when you got back.
About 2-3 days ago.
2 or 3 days ago. I see your wife back there. She's just got a big old silly grin on her face. How you doing? You doing okay? Tell us, are you allowed to tell us where you were or anything like that?
What I can tell you is that we were in Jordan.
Oh, Jordan. Okay. Well, very good. And was your deployment a good deployment?
Well, I'm a civil engineer electrician, so we go build stuff, so I guess if we go build stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know how people get this going building stuff.
Okay. So build some stuff. Right. Well, hey, listen, man, we are for real in New York. Are you glad to be back? How hot was it over there?
In the
It wasn't
summer-
too-
In the summers, it was 120. When we left, it was frost on the ground, but not like here.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people saying, like, oh my gosh, it's cold. And all the North Dakota guys are like, yeah.
Good to have you back, buddy. Hey, can we give him a round of applause? Yeah. And you know, with the government shutdown, I cannot believe this, but we got to keep another thriver. Brandon Wolfgang's with us somewhere. Was he in first service? I think so.
First service.
What's that? He was in first service, so they canceled his plans for a week. And yeah, so wow, that's so cool. I'm glad you're back. Hey, are you guys ready for a good day? The worship set us up great, and I'm excited. We're finishing a sermon series today called Resolution, and what we've been talking about the last 2 weeks is how oftentimes New Year's resolutions kind of go along the lines of, okay, what am I going to do to help myself get out of debt? What am I going to do to drop 5 or 50 pounds? What am I going to do to improve my marriage? What am I going to do, to get smarter? I'm going to go back to school for the first time in years, and all of that kind of stuff. How am I going to stop rooting for the Packers? Well, that one's easy now. But we've been talking about the bigger, broader question, maybe even the better question. And the better question is not so much what can I do for myself. That's good. But really, I think, and I think Scripture will prove, that we should be asking a bigger question, and that is, what can I do to improve the lives of those around me? What can I do in my sphere of influence? What can I do to up the game, to make it a better place, to make it a more positive, encouraging place? And if you really want to become a better person this year, then my encouragement to you is to do something to make your world a better place. Whether it is in your neighborhood, your community, at the base, at the school, whatever your slice of the world is, what can you do to change things up? And we started this series in the book of Nehemiah talking about a question, what breaks your heart? What breaks your heart? And, it's funny, all different kinds of people have all different kinds of answers, but we would all agree that there are things that disturb you, and there's things that disturb me. And but here's the thing, you guys: we watch the news or we watch TV, and all of a sudden something comes on, and you're like, like things that really hurt your heart, and it's like this one. In the eyes of the angels, away from me. I don't even know if I got those words right, but what am I doing? We're talking about what? Animals. Animals, when you see them Somebody's sitting there with a hose, I guarantee they're not being rained on. Someone's sitting there with a hose and it's falling on these poor little animals. And it looks like mud that they probably just gave them chocolate pudding, you know, and yet, you know, and you just sit there, you're like, praise God, where's the remote control? We got to change it, right? We don't get our checkbook out. We don't get our money out. We change the channel. I mean, this is just the way Americans are. We change the channel when we see something. Oh man, look at that. Oh, I can't deal with starving kids. Change that channel. Or you know, we see something even local. Oh, another thing. Somebody's got cancer. There's a benefit. Change the channel. We are so good at changing the channel when we see need. But every once in a while, something just grabs your heart. And you don't know what to do with it, but it just grabs your heart. It's more than just a news item. And you wonder why it bothers you so much. Why are you on the internet trying to figure out the means of this? And you know, you research it, you own it, you think about it when you're at work, staring at your computer screen. You find yourself thinking about it even more. And that's probably the thing that you care about the most outside of your family. And here's the thing that I've learned, that when we respond to these things on television or you know things that we see even around where we work or in our neighborhood, if we respond, ultimately we have made the decision to spend. It's going to cost us something. Anytime you respond to somebody's need, it's going to cost you something. And so, whether you're going to help somebody change a flat tire, right, on the side of the road, it's going to cost you your time, it's going to cost you some energy, it's going to cost you. And anytime you stop and make a difference, it costs you. It will require something of you. Maybe if you start responding to something, it's going to cost you a missed opportunity down the road that otherwise you would have had. But now, because you're involved in this, you can't be involved in this. And so there's this great tension, and we talked about this tension last week and the week before. But today, here's what I want to do. I want to pick on Christians, you know, just a little bit. Not a lot, but I do think that Christians, for the most part, followers of Christ, for the most part, are confused. I really believe this. I really believe that a lot of us believers were confused. Matter of fact, just look at your neighbor and say, boy, you are confused. Go ahead and say that to your neighbor. Yeah. Because here's how we get confused. And I just want you to process this, and you tell me. There's some sermon notes in your packet there today, but listen, you tell me, because here's how we're confused. Because Christians, we have a tendency, if we're not careful, to substitute devotion for action. To substitute devotion, you know, the vertical, for action. Horizontal. In other words, if we're not careful, we are so content to believe all the right things that we think, you know what, I believe all the right things. I believe that Jesus came and was born in Bethlehem, that he was a man and died for my sins and rose and then went to heaven. And I believe all of that, and I believe that we're all sinners and everybody needs God. And because we believe the right things, and you believe the Word of God, you believe the Word, but all of a sudden, we begin to think, well, hold it, because I believe the right things, I must be a Bible person. I must be a Christian. Because I believe the right things, that must make me a Christian. Because if I know a lot about God, and God and I are good, right? If God and I are good, if I know about God, then obviously I'm a Christian. But then you actually open up the New Testament or any part of the Bible and you start reading, and what you find out is, you start saying, how does my life, when you hold it up to the gospel, when you hold it up to the Bible, what does my life look like? Am I really a Christian? And suddenly you discover that believing in and of itself is not enough. It is not enough. And a lot of believers are content to believe something rather than to do something. Like when I pastored in another church, we had a full church board of people that wanted to make decisions, but they didn't want to make disciples. Drove me crazy. Drove me absolutely nuts. I'm not there anymore, obviously. There's a lot of people that would rather believe something rather than do something. So I think we should quit calling ourselves believers and call ourselves doers. In fact, that's exactly what Jesus said. Listen to what Jesus said. He said, if you hear these words of mine and don't do anything with them, you're like a foolish man who built his house on the sand, and when the storm came, the whole thing fell down. And unfortunately, it seems that sometimes we are more content with simply making a point than making a difference. And we as Christians, we're really good at making a point, aren't we? We're really good at shaking our fingers at the TV and saying, oh, somebody needs to change that. We're really good at shaking our finger at the culture and saying, boy, somebody should do something about that. We're really good at shaking our finger at the president, our current president, and saying, somebody should fix his hair. Somebody should do something about that guy. Or the last president, boy, somebody should do something about that. But what we're about to discover is this. If all you do is make points and you don't make a difference, we're not good Christians. Oh, I received Jesus into my heart when I was 4 years old. What have you done with it? Where has it led you? What differences have you really made in your life? Because just believing isn't enough. So today I want us to look at a very familiar scripture. And if I've done your wedding, I've probably used it. It's 1 Corinthians 13, written by Paul. And one of the reasons I like the New Testament, and if you want to open to 1 Corinthians 13 in the New Testament, go right ahead. But one of the reasons I like the New Testament and take it seriously, take the Bible seriously, and take Christianity seriously is this. Check this out. Paul was from this area, the Holy Land, and actually from the Jerusalem area. And just a few years after Jesus' death, and actually just a few years after he was crucified, the next thing you know, there are Jesus followers. And now there's churches starting to pop up all around these port cities like Rome and Philippi and Athens and Corinth and Ephesus and Thessalonica and all these major port cities. And suddenly there's churches cropping up everywhere, even Grafton. And there are people who are Jesus followers, and they're fired up for God. And the reason is because the Apostle Paul decided it's not enough for me just to believe. Yeah, I believe, but I got to do something about it. So he got on an old rickety boat, a boat that we wouldn't want to go 300 yards out into the river on, and he took that thing across the Mediterranean and he started planting churches, and he visited all of these port cities, and he planted these churches, and then he wrote letters to them, like 1 Corinthians, which was the first letter he wrote to them, and then 2 Corinthians was the second letter that he wrote to them, and actually there were some more. But so in 1 Corinthians 13, the Apostle Paul, he writes some extraordinary things, but also incredibly disturbing things to us believers. Things that should mess with the average Christian. And so if you're sitting there thinking, I'm just sitting there standing up here thinking, I'm just one of the average Christian guys, on the whatever. In 1 Corinthians 13, he's just finished in the previous chapter talking about giftedness. And the giftings and the things that God gives people, these personality traits and these things God allows a person to be good at. Versus things that they're not good at. And in a nutshell, just for those of you that might be sleeping, I just want you to catch this. Basically, what Jesus is saying, or what Paul is saying in 1 Corinthians 13 is this. It's time for Christians, for followers of Christ, for believers to put some motion into your devotion. Put some motion into your devotion. Look, Christian, it's not enough to believe. It's not enough to be right. It's not enough to be correct. You got to do something with what you know. Because if you don't, here's the deal. If you don't put some motion into your devotion, there's consequences. There's consequences. Consequences for me, consequences for you, consequences for us as a church. 1 Corinthians 13, he says this, if I speak in the tongue, if I speak in the languages of men or angels, but do not have love, I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. You ever heard a clanging cymbal before? Just nasty, right? Kind of like your kids getting the pots and pans out. Just very, very, very loud. And so he says, hey, look, if God gave me the gift and I had the supernatural ability to speak in other languages so people from different parts of the world could understand me, let's say also I understood the language of angels. That's what he's saying here. If I speak in the language of men or angels. That's my phone on the front row. Would you mind just telling them I'll... That's a clanging cymbal right there. There it is. Did you get it? Oh, damn it. And that wasn't even a thing. We didn't plan that. That worked out perfectly. So in other words, if God gave me the gift to speak to angels and speak in eloquent voices and languages all over the world, if God gave me that, and he got me doing all of that, but if I don't love people, then it's worth nothing. So you might be able to speak and talk and maybe even have this amazing prayer language that you speak with, the angels, and you got all of this, but you don't love people. Then if you don't have agape love, which is that action-oriented love, it's the love that is a verb, right? If you don't have that in your life, but you can do all these amazing things, you are nothing. It's like, wow, have you ever heard that person pray? Oh, have you ever been in her class or his class? Wow, they can teach, right? If they don't have love, they have nothing. Nothing. If I had the most intimate, awe-inspiring prayer life, a connection with God, but I don't do something as it relates to loving other people, I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. I'm just a bunch of noise. To which we would say, well, now wait. Paul, how can you say that? To which he would say, because if there's no love for others, then it's all about me. And that's true. To which we'd say, Paul, you're discounting the importance of devotion to God. And he's saying, no. What I'm discounting is stopping there. What I'm discounting is trying to measure your devotion to God by this vertical thing and ignoring the horizontal thing. So the question that we've got to ask is, what are you doing, thriver, believer, Christ follower? What are you really doing to make a difference this way? This way. Because if you stop short of devotion to God, if all you say is, God and I are good, and I love to worship God, love to go to church, if that is how you measure your Christianity, and your personal prayer life is sincere, and you've got gooey tears, and you're like, oh, and two-handed worship, not just one hand once in a while, two-handed worship, and you're all in, and like, woo! Right? And you start crying during the music, and you stay away from the preaching. I mean, gee, from God's perspective, if you got all of this going, but you don't have much going on out there, it's nothing but noise. And then he goes on, if I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge. In other words, he says, and even if you're one of those Christians who seem to have it all figured out, there's a verse for that, right? There's a verse for that. And these people are so deep into the Word of God, and they study and they labor over the Scriptures. Somebody says John 11, and this person says, oh, that's Lazarus. And, they've always got a Scripture, and they just know so much you say, tell me about the Bible. They can talk to you about the Old Testament and the New Testament, Armageddon and Daniel and the book of Revelation and the color of the horseman coming and the rapture. I mean, they just know it all. They just know it all. Paul says, even if you are so educated and knowledgeable that you can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and he says, but you don't have anything working out this way. If you got all of this going, the vertical, and not the horizontal, you're nothing but noise. And he says, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, and this person is sometimes the pastor or the leader or someone that everybody, you just listen to this person because they're like, they speak with this kind of language. I don't know how they even do it. Right? Little kid, right? For instance, have you ever been around somebody that spoke so definitively for God that people just fell in line? So when I was a children's pastor, for 11 years in a megachurch in Ohio. And we were growing like crazy growth. And it was a lot of fun, but I remember sitting in a board meeting and we were discussing what we were going to build next as a church, because we had been through four building programs in about 8 years, and we were getting ready to build a sanctuary. Church was running probably 2,000 people, 2,500 people, something like that. And there was this one board member, I'll just use a different name, we'll say his name was Mike. Mike was this guy that had such an intimate, deep relationship prayer-wise with God that everybody else was kind of down here. It was like Mike and his relationship with God, and then everybody else. And one day, Mike comes into board meeting and he says, I think we need to build a 3,200 seat sanctuary. And we're all like, what? Yeah, he goes, I think we could fill that thing up. And we're, us church guys, guys that have kind of been trained in this, we know that you don't do that. You have multiple services where you try to fill individual services and keep filling them, and plus that didn't take into account all the children. It would have felt empty, but you know what? Mike was such a spiritual guy, everybody lined up right behind him. He wasn't even the pastor. He was just one of the guys. And guess what they did? They built a 3,200 seat sanctuary, which is like 30 times the size, no, it would be 10 times the size of this room. 10 times the size of this room. And guess what happens on Sundays right now? They have to put up curtains in the back so people can't sit back there because it looks empty. It is empty. They built this monstrosity of a building that they didn't need, and they listened to a guy they shouldn't have listened to, and you know what? That happens. This guy had the faith that could move mountains, or so they believe. Everyone pays attention to whatever they say, like it's coming from the mouth of God. And they're so confident, and you listen to them and you think, they've got to be right. And Paul is saying, listen, you know what? You might have the faith that can move mountains, but if you don't love people, and sometimes that guy was a bully, by the way. If you don't love people, if you're not there when they're hurting, when they're struggling, you don't tell people you love them and you're in their corner, just a lot of noise. I'm not saying that it's not important. All I'm saying is that faith without works is incomplete. And then he says this, he says, and what if I give all that I possess to the poor? And I give my body to hardship that I may boast. Have you ever been around people that want to give to something but they want to be recognized for it? I have a friend who's in the church, and there's a guy that was in his church, and he would give things to the church, like he'd buy the grill, right? Or he would buy the picnic table for the church, or he would buy, the painting for the church, or he would just keep buying stuff, but every time he bought something, he wanted to be recognized for it. Until one day he decided to take his family and leave the church. And guess what else he took? All that stuff. You know why? Because it wasn't about the church. What was it about? Himself. But if I don't have love, I gain nothing. He says, no matter what you do, no matter what you know, no matter what you give, no matter what you've experienced, if there is not some part of you where you are willing to wade out into the messiness of people's lives and help people, you are nothing. And so when I look at these verses, you know, it's hard. It's hard to preach like this because you guys are my friends. You're my team. And I know that we need to be more active as a church. I do. And I know we need to be about the Father's business. I do. You know, when I look at all those verses, I'll give you my body over the flames and tongues. Anyway, I decided we would just put these kind of verses in our language for today. And so I thought I'd just read these to you, okay? Here's a quick version. For instance, right? Here's a for instance for you. If I raise perfect children, maintain the perfect schedule, and maintain my ideal weight, but do not have love, I am nothing more than a leaf blower at 6:30 on Saturday morning. Now you could substitute that with a chainsaw, am I right? It's just noise. If I drive an electric car, decline any coffee that is not fair trade, but do not have love, I am nothing more than an obnoxious ringtone in a crowded movie theater or church. If I take my family to the Holy Land and leave New Testaments in every room along the way, but I do not have love, I am nothing more than a middle school girl's playlist. Just noise. And here's another one I wrote. If I shop at the local Hugo's instead of the big box Walmart, and if I shout Hawks instead of Sioux at the Sioux games, and if I recycle but I don't have love, I'm nothing but a Packers and or Eagles fan. Here's the point. Devotion to God does not stop at good behavior. You know, if our day is, God, hey God, today I didn't sin, I didn't smoke, or I didn't take any drugs today. God, you've got to be pleased with me. Or God, today I didn't drink it up. You know, or today I walked by that guy's cubicle and I didn't even look at him. Of course, that wasn't me. Or, you know, God, I didn't steal anything. Or, God, you know, I didn't let my thought process go there. God, you've got to be pleased with me. If that's where we are, if God, I made it through the day. Paul says, yeah, do all of that stuff. That's growing as a Christian, but you better go further than that, because that's kind of like the introduction. To be a real Christian, to be a real Christian, you gotta wade out into the messiness of people's lives. You can't stand back and expect everybody else to do it. Oh, that's bad over there. Click, I'm going to change the channel. Oh, somebody else will help pull that guy out of the ditch. Click, I'm going to change the channel. No, we've got to be in this. Here's the deal. When our faith goes no further than private, internal devotion, when our faith goes no further than, how am I doing, God? When our faith stops with my attempt to be more godly, we're nothing but a resounding gong. We're a clanging cymbal. Recently I spoke with a friend who was struggling with coming into the church because he didn't feel like he was good enough to come into the church. He's like, yeah, I come into the church and everybody seems like they have it together. Like everybody, you know, they have a smiley face and, you know, everybody's glad to be there and they hug and they're so excited and they have good things to say. And I said to this guy, I said, buddy, I guarantee you, if that's all you're seeing to thrive in the lives of people, I guarantee you just saw their highlight reels. Because they are as inconsistent as you are. On the other hand, if those same people are pointing people to Jesus, not because of their triumphs, but because of His, man, that's going to help people. So I guess that gets back to what breaks your heart? What breaks your heart? I'm going to read you some of these things that you wrote about what breaks your heart. And if you wrote one of these, I didn't grab them all, I just grabbed some. But if you wrote one of these things down, you've got to figure out now, what are you going to do with that? Homelessness breaks my heart. I don't know who wrote that, but you got to do something about that. Don't change the channel. Click equality at work. You got to do something about that one. Orphans, especially those with special needs. Oh, bless your heart. That's a great one. God put that on your heart. That He's going to equip you to get that job done. Respect for country, flag, and God.
Amen.
That's really cool. I can't wait to see what, whoever wrote that, I can't wait to see what you do with that. Children who are affected by the negative actions of their parents. Example, kids in foster care. Yeah. Don't change the channel, I'm telling you. Elders who are alone without companionship. Yeah. You know, you think of the nursing homes around town. Can you imagine a group of 30 thrivers showing up? They might be thinking they're going to get robbed or something. Can you imagine that, though? How cool that would be if somebody owned that? And it's just waiting for somebody to own it. It's not waiting for Pastor Mark to say, well, now we need to do this. I'm telling you, man, own that. Stigma of mental health illness. All the sick and starving kids in the world. People who believe in Jesus but don't surrender their life to Him. Sounds like you need to teach. Pro-life healing for those who have had abortions. What are you going to do with that? The consequences of bullying. Thank you. Can't wait to see what you do with that. Homeless veterans. That's a sad one, isn't it? Sue hockey. Sue hockey. I'm going to put that in my pocket. Maybe that guy's got some tickets for me. Helping counsel depressed Packers fans. Helping children with special needs. Caring for and working with people with disabilities. And scrapbooking. Should I make the... No. Leave it? Okay. There could be a correlation. Okay. Seeing people saved. Yeah. What are you going to do about that? Widows. Now, I thought it said windows. It says widows. You know, and there's a lot of widows around here. World hunger. Abandoned animals. Women who don't know their worth. There are a ton of things that if you say, you know what, I know what it is. I know that thing that God has placed on your heart. You're going to watch about a 5-minute video. I went to Fargo this week to interview a friend of mine. We've been friends for a long time, a great friend. He's a behind-the-scenes guy. He's been to Thrive probably, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 times. He's been up to Grafton. He's been here several times. He was at the YMCA. He canvassed this community, handing out flyers when they first got to Grand Forks. He's from Fargo, and he's part of another church, but he just loves what we're doing here. And recently, he owns an auto dealership, just a small little auto dealership, about 50 cars. And he'll tell you about that. But I want you to see the impact he's making with his business and how he's leveraging what God has given him to help others. He's leveraging what God has given him to make a difference. And the reason this made such a difference for me is because one of his Facebook posts said this. Can you put that up there? Tomorrow is Thursday again, and it's our free oil change day for single mothers. How cool is that? How cool is that? So then WDAZ did a quick report on him, and anyway, I contacted him. He was very humble about it. He's like, oh, I don't know if your people are going to want to see anything about it. Anyway, his name is Andy Schwandt. He's a really good friend of mine. And here's a little bit of the story. And just let this be used to help you come up with your story.
Today with free oil changes by Family Auto Care. The shop, previously known as Luxury Motorsports, ran a promotion all day today, which also includes a free inspection. They're providing the service as a way to help those who cannot afford it and might be prioritizing more immediate expenses. If you are a single mom and missed out on it today, don't worry. The shop plans to do it every Thursday. You can just go in or call and make an appointment to get the oil change.
My name is Andy Schwandt. I own Luxury Motorsports and Family Auto Care here in Fargo, North Dakota. We sell cars and we repair cars. Been in the car business now for about 17 years, selling, managing, financing, and I started my own thing about 5 months ago, and I've really enjoyed it so far, so it's been fun. So we've got kind of a small operation. We have about 50 cars on the lot most of the time, and we have about 10 employees, and that's it. We do paintless dent removal, body work, and service work. So about 16 years ago, I was far from God. We never went to church, didn't like it. It was one of my biggest arguments with my wife. She wanted to go, I didn't. My daughter got talked into going to a dance recital. She talked me into going to a dance recital at a church. It was called Prairie Heights Community Church. It was at the FM Community Theater. The pastor, John Hauser, ended up talking about the harvest, and we saw a harvest film, and he was talking about forgiveness of sins, accepting Christ and that, and it happened then. I find myself watching it, I'm crying, I haven't been to church in years, and since then I've probably missed church 5 times, and so been going ever since, and have just been blessed with the whole thing. We've gotten a chance to be up at Thrive, and we've really liked that ever since it was down at the bottom of the Y. So that was fun. And then the Ministry Center in Grand Forks there, and then now the new one we've been to. So it's been a really cool ride. So actually, my heart for service grew as I grew closer to the Lord. I ended up where I kept getting better opportunities to serve and to help others. So we started with these oil changes here. It's a free oil change for single moms. It makes an impact, but not as much. It's basically a $30 oil change. We do 10 of them a week. But what it did create was the opportunity to help people where they needed transmissions, they needed engines, they needed cars to drive. And so what we ended up doing was we've given out probably 1 transmission or major repair every week since we've been open here. And with that, people have been needing that. That changed something in them, because it isn't people who couldn't afford it because it would be an inconvenience. These are people that needed a car to get to work, to take kids to daycare, and it was something that was critical for them and their survival. And so we do that. So one of the ladies that came in, she came in and she walked over from her place to here, and it was all the way across town. She was frozen by the time she got here. She heard that we helped people that had problems with their cars. We took a car over there, got it over here, and it turned out it was a transmission, $2,200 to get it fixed, and she didn't have any money. So what ended up happening was we said, you know what, we'll fix it. If you can pay something down the road, great, but if not, it's fine. She's actually driving my personal car now because she needed a way to get to her kids to school and her to her job. It's those kind of things that end up being just such a blessing to us. She asked me why we do stuff like this, and I started it by just telling her that the oil changes came about because Prairie Heights Community Church did it in the parking lot this summer, and I thought it was a good idea. It created an opening for us to tell people that we are involved with the church, and this is why we do it, and that if Jesus was here, he would be doing it to you too. I think that it's important to be the hands and feet of Christ. When you talk about that as a mission statement, as something that you do, I think it comes in stages. When I first started trying to be of service to people, I would do things like open doors for people, take shopping carts back, and do something very small just so I could feel like I was doing something that Christ would do if he was standing in my shoes. I want to encourage you, if this touched you in any way at all, if you want to serve, you don't have to do anything big. You can do something small, get started, let it grow, be part of the church, be part of the community. If you see somebody in need, just help them. Do it like you're doing it for Jesus, and it will come back to you. It will make you feel better than you can possibly imagine. Bless others, and it'll bless yourself. You will never get tired, and you will never resent it if you feel like you're doing it for Jesus.
That's my friend Andy, who answered the question, what breaks my heart? And for him, it was single moms who needed an oil change. And instead of hitting click and changing the channel, he did something about it. So for the past 3 weeks, we've been asking, what breaks your heart? And so now you have the opportunity to respond to it or to change the channel. Like Andy said, you don't have to do something huge. You can start off small. Find that thing. You'll never be sorry. Let God use you. Don't be that resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. Show God's love. That's what we're here for. To love people. I'll pray for you. Lord, in this moment, this very sacred moment, I pray that each person in this place would be able to acknowledge in their own heart the thing that breaks their heart. And I pray, Lord, that even if it's the size of a mustard seed, that you would begin to grow it. And may it hold on to them. Yeah, God, we have to have this vertical relationship with you figured out, but it can't stop there. We've got to make a difference in this world. So cause something in us to do something through us. In the mighty, powerful name of Jesus Christ.